Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Fun and Games with Ludo and Raph.
Yeah, we're having fun and games, and this time I think it's a game. It could be fun.
I mean, it's not really a game. Last week, we talked about Manhattan. Well, I say last week. Everybody got sick. Not everybody.
I got sick.
Ludo got sick, so it's been a while since we talked about it. This is the joy of recording in advance. You can actually deal with.
The joy of having high fever.
No, but like it's a big advantage if you're essentially in delay, and you can compensate. Anyway, the point is, in the previous episode of the podcast, we talked about Manhattan, a movie by Woody Allen from the 70s, which is in black and white. And we didn't really talk about the black and white too much, but it's interesting when modern movies decide to go black and white. And so I thought that's something we could talk about today. I have prepared a few movies, kind of modern movies that do black and white with different kind of intentions behind it, and also like with different gimmicks and stuff. But maybe we can talk about it for just a second here. I mean, do you know why Manhattan is in black and white?
Because it's very inspired by noir movies.
Right.
And so it's just like this style.
Well,
it wouldn't work. Like I never really seen a noir movie that is not in black and white.
This is true, and this is actually something we will definitely get into with the examples that I have brought today as well. But one of the things that Woody Allen said about it is that apparently, like, his memory of New York is in black and white because maybe knows it from postcards or things like that. So it's interesting because it's like this aesthetic of the postcard, which if you look at the most famous shot from the movie, it definitely has that air of a postcard with the kind of landscape in the background.
So it's like the granularity of, like, you can see it better with black and white. Like with color, if it's granular, you really feel that it's like low, like it could be more high definition. But with black and white, it's granular. It's like, oh, it's so cool and.
Okay, I think that's a you thing, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if that's maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. One thing that I thought might be worth mentioning for once is that we have done 25 episodes of this podcast, and I've never mentioned that I actually have a film degree, I think. And maybe it will come out a little bit when we talk about this, because this is a very analytical way of looking at movies, whereas usually we just shoot the shit. Anyway, let's...
And this is going to show because I have no qualification. The only time I used my qualification was to put the animals in the right spots during night at the museums.
Well, I also think that it's not important. Like, one of the reasons why I don't bring up that I have a film degree is because I don't think I need a film degree to talk about movies. Like,
but
with like...
You're going to teach me.
Because what we need is, like, to be passionate about it, not to have studied it, Okay, we're going to start with a movie that you have actually seen. I think the other ones on the list you haven't seen. We're going to start with Schindler's List.
Yes.
Which Steven Spielberg shot this while doing Jurassic Park. And it's interesting that you have this stark contrast between this really colorful dinosaur movie and this really depressing black and white Holocaust movie.
Maybe he needed the break.
No, he did it at the same time.
No, I mean, like, you cannot just shoot an Holocaust movie all the time. You need to think about something else for a change.
I think it was a nightmare to do. Anyway, I have this... So I pulled some pictures together, and I'm going to be honest, I got them online. I didn't go through the movie and got the screenshots myself. So hopefully they're all actually from the movie and not something that was promotional material that only looks similar to the movie. But anyway, that's... FYI. So here's a picture from the movie. I think we don't have to introduce what the movie really is about, other than it's a Holocaust movie. It's set in the 40s, and it's in black and white, as you can see here. Now, one thing that I think it accomplishes is that, I mean, obviously, it's going back to a time when black and white photography and black and white film was the standard. And so to achieve a certain documentary feel to the movie is to go with that style, basically. And I think,
Even though,
Yeah.
like, real life at the time was in color.
exactly, like if you look at something like The Pianist, which is a similar kind of movie, which is in color, like you can do that, but I understand where it's going, and I think in all the
Yeah.
wide shots, like this one here, for example, but
Yeah.
also any crowd scenes and things like that, like it really looks like historical footage, like.
Well,
And
it
I think it
also
wouldn't feel that way.
helped because I don't know if this movie did it, but some movies that are like historical movies, they use historical footage as well to kind of like make it like
Yeah.
for the bigger like crowd scenes to make it more realistic.
Right.
So it's nice that all the movie is in black and white because you don't have to color the historical
Right.
footage that it's always
Yeah.
kind of feel weird.
I actually also don't know about that. Maybe there is some. I mean, definitely not this shot because Liam Neeson
Yes.
is in it. But but then there's also another aspect, a very famous aspect about Schindler's List, and it's stuff like this. Do you want to explain to us what's going on here? Who is this? Who is this girl in the red coat?
Is a girl.
Right, but in the movie,
I don't remember.
it's just a random Jewish girl.
Yes, it's a random
right?
girl. Okay, it's not a special girl, but everybody's going to the extermination camps. I think that what works here, at least for me, it's that you either hear like the single story of one person, like the Holocaust survivor that is gonna tell you their story, and you hear their perspective, and they're an individual, and you can empathize with them, but there's always like, what's this one person experience? And then you go to, like, if you go visit, for example, Auschwitz, you see these like never-ending lists of names and personal objects and stuff, and there is like so many people that you cannot really grasp like the magnitude of it. And in this way it's a very good way to both see like how many people are walking into this extermination camp, but also especially like it's one of the final scenes in the movie in which there is the red coat. It's an individual and it's such a big
The point
group.
is we're seeing this individual pretty much only in crowds. Like it's just occasionally we see this little blotch of red, and that's a motif basically that doesn't quite run through the movie, that pops up every now and then. And in the end we see dead bodies, and I don't know, the first time I saw this movie I didn't realize that it was a body. I thought it was just the coats being carted away, but it's actually more gruesome than that, which, you know, that's its own thing. But the point here is basically this first shot is, or these first shots are kind of a setup to say that there are random deaths in these crowds, right? We're not looking at any individual one, but it's interesting because that reveal at the end kind of hits really hard, even though we have no connection to the red coat girl, but we did point, like Spielberg did point it out to us constantly.
Yeah.
And I think it's very, very clever filmmaking to create emotion out of sort of the anonymous crowd.
Yeah, and it's like it's an anonymous crowd, but every one of them is a peculiar individual with its like its own thing.
And to go back to our theme here, if this movie was in color, but there was like no one ever wore red except this one girl, it still wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Like, this only works because it's such a stark contrast between color film and black and white film. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Depressing stuff too.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to a movie called Following. Christopher Nolan's first movie. Very grainy as well, as you can see here.
Yeah.
This is a kind of a neo-noir thing. It's, you know, it's a movie he made before Memento, so you can kind of imagine that. Following is the story of a guy who follows people.
Random people,
well,
like he pick
he
once
yes,
and he
that's
follows
basically
them
he
for
picks
a
out
while
someone in the
or
crowd.
until something happens.
That's not important. He follows people around, and then, you know, like he gets kind of roped into something, you know, illegal stuff, and it's the noir thing. Usually, your main character isn't very lucky in that respect. So here we can see him following the other guy. Anyway, the general idea of that movie really is Christopher Nolan wanted to make a really cheap movie, but he also wanted to shoot on film. So in a way, it makes sense that he would go with black and white film stock because presumably it's cheaper than color film stock. more importantly, the post-production process is probably slightly less expensive in terms of you don't have to worry about color grading, and you probably have a little bit more leeway with colors in general because they just get monochromed, or not monochromed as much as down color grayscale. There we go. That's what I was thinking of.
Plus, you said it's a noir, and also I think that if it's like, I know that it's a pretty short movie.
Yeah.
But if it's mostly, like, for example, here, the main character, it's not in the front of the scene. Like, we have to, like, look around to see the main character. It's, like, a little bit behind. And I think it's way more easy to concentrate on like, to just keep track of your character, like, in black and white, because color adds a lot of, like, distraction.
Yeah.
So you can see somebody also if it's, like, behind or in a crowd, and you can focus on them a little bit more.
Big issue
easily.
there is also lighting, because especially when you have a lot of distracting elements in a scene, then you will need to light it very well to guide the eye. And this is actually a weird thing because they use mostly natural light, because another way of saving money is not to have to set up lights at all. And a funny thing is that a lot of characters are just constantly standing near windows because of that. So that's just a weird side effect of it. But if you look at something like this, I'm also not sure why the aspect ratio of these pictures changed. Whatever, not important. I think if you look at something like you can really see the influences, like people wearing suits.
Yeah.
This is I think this might be the only movie that's in present day, so like this is not a noir and like set in the 30s or anything like that. This is again, it's called neo-noir, it's the modern version of it. But it has that influence, and you have characters standing near windows, and you have some moments, I don't think I have a picture of it now, but there are some moments when the lighting is a little bit icky, like where you can barely see what's going on.
That's good for me.
Well, it reminds me of Manhattan, which we talked about last week, which I hated that there, so I didn't like it here either. It's an okay movie, good time. Not certainly a strong, it's not a strong Nolan movie, because when you give the guy money, he makes a movie like this, but better. But yeah, whatever. I recommend it to those who are interested in the kind of thing that Christopher Nolan does. Now we move on to Sin City. Now this, I only remember the first one being particularly good. The second one, which was made much later, I thought was, forgettable. But Sin City, the comic book adaptation, was mostly held in black and white, as we can see in this picture here, which I think is just, that's what the comic book was like as well.
Yeah, like it has a very good, like, comic book quality, because the black and white here, like, really looks almost like ink.
Yes, and it's very unnatural. It's like very high contrast, and then like the tape that Mickey Rourke is wearing here is I think it was actually like blue or green screen, and then like, you made it white in post-production. Like, what would be bright white like that on black skin, right? So it's like, it's very exaggerated, it's very stylized, which is something that we haven't really seen in the previous examples. Like, there wasn't, other than like maybe the red coat, there wasn't really anything, also in Manhattan, not that well, actually in Manhattan there are some scenes at the planetarium that are very stylized. So, and they also work a little bit through that high contrast play between shadow and light. But this is perhaps a very extreme example of the same thing. And I think it helps characterization in the sense that, like, so Mickey Rourke here is playing, I think, Marv, who is kind of a old school gentleman fighter type guy. And you can see that he's very beat up. And I think that's like a big part of his kind of story, is that he's just very wary of, just running from one troubled situation into the other and essentially just murdering everyone. And then, of course, if we look, this is Marv again, I think. He's waking up next to a lady. This is, I think, how we're introduced to him. And he wakes up and he realizes that the woman beside him is dead.
Oh.
And this is how we're introduced to that. And I think this big heart-shaped bed is again playing into this idea that, like, he's just chasing something very simple, and he is unlucky about it.
But to me, this is a little bit more too extreme, especially like her hair.
Yeah.
It's distracting me.
But you can see how that's like, again, this is a matter of style, and it has its distinct style, and I think that's what's cool about
Also,
Sin
it's
City.
interesting that there is this heart-shaped bed that it's like a kind of like a cheap motel vibe where people
Yeah.
go have sex, and then there is a Bible on the chair, on the desk.
Yeah, I think she might be a prostitute as well. Like, it makes perfect sense. And then we have something like this. Maybe if you don't know, like, Sin City is structured as a bunch of little stories that are told, so it's not one cohesive thing, although there are crossovers. And so we also have Bruce Willis's story, and his thing is that he's dealing with a child predator who is yellow, and so when he I think he castrates him twice in the movie.
Just to be sure.
Well, there's a big time jump. So the first time he protects Jessica Alba's character when she's 11 years old, and then he shoots him in the balls, and then like I don't know, 10 years later or something, she becomes a stripper, and the bad guy, again who is yellow, is going through all kinds of like medical procedures to regain his
Snip, snap, snip, snap.
Exactly. You know how it feels. And so then Bruce Willis castrates him again, and I think also kills him by punching him to death, which is, if I remember correctly, what this picture is from. And so there is something narrative about it, like this idea that like him being covered in this yellow blood, and I think he's also about to die here because he got shot. And again, this is like Schindler's List in that this kind of stark contrast just wouldn't exist if it was, color all over.
Yeah.
Anyway, these are some of the black and white movies that I could think of, like modern black and white movies that I've seen. There are many more that I haven't seen or that I don't have anything to say about. I know that Francis Ford Coppola does a bunch of black and white movies, which, like Rumblefish and Outsiders, anyway, those I haven't seen. I'm sure you would be interested in them.
I just think that black and white looks cool.
I do think so too, although I work in news, and in news, black and white is code for this person died. If you take a picture of someone, that's black and white. So like sometimes we would ask people like, can we have a picture of you so we can put it online next to the story or whatever, and they would send like a really nice black and white picture, and I was like, we can't use that because it suggests that you have died.
Oh.
Like, we need a colorful picture.
So if it ever happens to me, I say, and this is what I want people to think.
Okay.
It's all a plot.
Well, it doesn't further the story, I suppose. Anyway, don't use black and white pictures if you're still alive, and we will see you next week for Spider-Man by Sam Raimi.
Oh, bye-bye.